Welcome to Joe's Recaps. In this video, we are going to comment a movie called In Time. People are genetically modified to stop aging at the age of 25 by the year 2169. When that occurs, a timer with only 1 year left on it displays on their arm. They must work to keep on living, since time is now society's currency. This means rich people are essentially eternal. The nation has been divided into regions known as time zones to distinguish the various classes. New Greenwich is the wealthiest one.
For more videos like this, subscribe and click the notification bell.
Will and his mother Rachel reside in a little apartment in the ghetto, and they barely have enough money to survive each day. Will wants to make some money on the side through time fighting, but Rachel forbids it because it never turns out well. Will is still a kind person in spite of everything, and whenever he sees young Maya on the streets, he gives her some of his time so she can survive as well. Will and his best friend Boral work at a factory. The factory always rises the prices of the snacks, and it's common to find dead people that timed out on the floor. They're all paid by the day, but the factory always finds an excuse for why their employees didn't meet their quota and pays them less. One evening, Will visits a bar where he used to gamble to get an hour from a guy who owed him. He also meets Boral, who is happily getting drunk thanks to a crazy guy. He is buying drinks for everyone. His name is Henry, whose timer has a whole century. Will tells he doesn't understand what a rich man is doing here, and he tries to warn him about the Minutemen, a bunch of thugs that steal other people's times. But Henry doesn't pay attention. Just as Will fears, gang leader Fortis arrives and asks Henry for a time fight. Everyone else in the bar runs away, but Will hides at the back just in case. Henry agrees to the challenge, but requests for a moment in the restroom first. Only one guard follows him, so Will seizes the opportunity to knock the gangster out and escape with Henry through the back door. They escape a few streets and enter an abandoned factory, where Will locks the door from the inside. Will wonders what a rich guy is doing in the ghetto, and Henry reveals he left New Greenwich. He's 105 years old and tired of living. When Will says this is ridiculous, Henry finds it amusing by the boy's lack of understanding of the world. He tells the cost of living keeps rising in the ghetto to ensure people keep dying, because the rich can only survive if the poor die. Eventually, Henry and Will fall asleep. The next morning, Henry takes advantage of waking up first to pass all his time to Will. He only keeps 5 minutes to himself. Then shortly after, Will wakes up and finds a message on the window saying, "Don't waste my time." When he looks outside, he spots Henry sitting on the bridge right before he times out. Will goes to the bridge and sees Henry dead. He doesn't notice the security cameras around before running away. Later, Will goes to Boral's house, where he bumps into Boral's wife, Greta, and their new baby. Will speaks with Boral in private and gives him a decade, which matches the 10 years they've known each other. In the evening, Will walks to wait for his mother at the bus stop, but she never shows up. It turns out Rachel just has an hour and a half left, and the bus fare went up that afternoon, so she can no longer afford it. Since it takes 2 hours to go back home, Rachel must hurry if she wants to see her son once again. When Will realizes what's going on, he also starts running. In the middle of the street, they collide into each other, but unfortunately it's too late and Rachel times out in Will's arms. The following morning, the police known as Timekeepers finds Henry's body in the river. Agent Leon is certain he's been murdered for his time, and instructs his men to check the security cameras. They can't see the body falling because of the angle of the cameras, but they see Will's face and assume he's behind Henry's death. Meanwhile, Will wants to revenge his mother's death. Will hires a limo pretending to be a rich guy who got lost, and makes the driver take him to New Greenwich. He needs to pay an extremely high toll each time when he crosses a border. Once he makes it to the city, he checks into a nice hotel. His presence is noticed by Sylvia. After resting, Will has some food and Sylvia watches him from distance. The waitress can tell Will isn't a local, but she treats him well because he tips her generously. She also points out that if Will plans to go to the casino, he'll need better clothes. The fact that Will traveled so many time zones in a few hours appears suspicious in the system, allowing the timekeepers to find his current location. Leon is aware he's chased Will's father in the past. In the evening, Will buys a proper suit and goes to the casino, where they ask for a voluntary donation of a year because he is not a member. Will joins the poker table and he meets Mr. Weiss, a time-loaning businessman that doesn't hesitate to bet high amounts of time. Sylvia, who is Weiss' daughter, also joins to the table, but only to watch, and Will keeps an eye on her while taking the risk and betting all he has. This turns out to be worth it because Will wins the game, which impresses Weiss, and Will receives an invitation to his next party. The following day, Will buys a very expensive car and drives it to Weiss' party. Sylvia is very curious about Will and invites Will to dance, telling him she can see he's most likely from the ghetto. She admits she occasionally envies people from the ghetto because she lives always surrounded by her father's guards, and she wishes to be able to do a foolish or worth something. Will drags her to the beach behind the house to go swimming, which should count as something foolish. At first, Sylvia is hesitant, but soon joins him in the water and they talk the possibility of doing more foolish things. When people start looking for Sylvia, she hides with Will in a cave and asks him to go back before they get into trouble. They return to the mansion through a different door to escape suspicion. Weiss asks Will to play poker, but they're suddenly interrupted by the timekeepers, who found Will's location by following the purchase of his car. They take Will to a private office for interrogation. He tells them about Henry timing out on purpose. They don't believe him and take most of his time, leaving him with only 2 hours for booking and processing. Leo tells Will he reminds him of his father, who Will doesn't remember well. Weiss and Sylvia come to check on the situation, and Will takes advantage of the distraction to beat the timekeepers up and steal a gun before fleeing. He uses the gun to grab Sylvia as his hostage, and they run through the back door to leave in Will's car. Leon begins pursuing Will across the city, and even manages to hit his car from behind, but Will starts driving backward. He manages to dodge a truck at the last second, but Leon doesn't react so fast and crashes against it, so Will gets to escape. As they make their way to the ghetto, Will asks Sylvia for some time, but she refuses. When they come to a bridge, Will gets distracted by the surveillance cameras and doesn't see the spike strip on the ground, which causes the car to crash. Both Will and Sylvia fall unconscious. Later, Fortis and his men find them, and they immediately begin stealing Sylvia's time. At that moment, they hear the timekeeper's sirens approaching and run away, leaving Sylvia with only half an hour. When they wake up, Sylvia panics at the little time she has left and asks Will for help. Will finds it ironic how she's now in favor of sharing, but helps her anyway. After they go to the town, the timekeepers arrive to inspect the car, although Leon first must ask for his daily pay, because he never carries more time than necessary. Seeing the situation, Leon decides not to chase after Will anymore because he's sure he'll call them first. Will goes to meet Boral to ask for help, but Greta has bad news. Boral drank so much that he passed away with 9 years still on his timer. Sylvia begins freaking out again, but Will notices she has fancy earrings and takes her to the pawn shop. The owner is about to close, but when he sees how valuable the rings are, he makes an exception. He also notices how desperate they're for time and only pays them 2 days, which they have no choice but to accept. Then they go to a payphone and will make Sylvia dial her house's phone. Will asks for 1,000 years as a ransom to be given to the timelines in the ghetto. Leon tells Will that he's becoming too much like his father and reveals the man didn't die during a time fight like Will thinks. He actually was doing something more dangerous. Will hangs up on him, and Leon tells Sylvia's parents about the ransom, but Weiss is hesitant to give away even what for him is pocket change. Will takes Sylvia to his apartment to spend the night there, and Sylvia puts on Rachel's old clothes. Sylvia asks Will about his father, and Will replies that his dad used to be an excellent time fighter, and he taught him a few tricks. He grabs Sylvia's arm and demonstrates how to time fight, a contest of wills between timers. His father taught him to let the opponent think they have the upper hand, let his own clock almost reach 0, and when the opponent is distracted by his incoming death, turn the tables and take it all. Will used to think his father died on a time fight, but he now understands he was probably killed because he gave away what he had won. Then the pair shared what happened on their 25th birthdays. Will's timer began when he was on the street, and he quickly almost lost his extra year because they were in debt. Sylvia, on the other hand, awoke peacefully in bed, and her father gave her a decade to celebrate. The next morning, Will observes the timeline building from the window, but unfortunately, they don't have any charity to share, meaning Weiss didn't pay the ransom. Sylvia's upset by her father's carelessness, but finally realizes he became rich by stomping on other people's rights. Will tells her to go home, but Sylvia refuses, causing them to accept to work together and kiss. Sylvia wants to call home though, so Will offers her the gun to protect herself while he watches from the corner. Weiss quickly answers Sylvia's call, but ignores her insults to warn her the timekeepers are coming to get her. When Sylvia turns around, she sees Leon coming toward Will, so she shoots him in the arm. Will takes the chance to check Leon's timer and discovers timekeepers don't keep much time with them. This prompts Will to give Leon some time in order for his co-workers to rescue him. While Will and Sylvia escape in Leon's car, Leon starts walking out of town as everyone yells at him for not protecting the little people. Thankfully, his fellow rescues him before things get violent. Later, Sylvia points out they can't keep driving in a cop car, which gives Will an idea. He pretends to be a timekeeper to stop another car by the road, and then they begin to steal the rich lady's earrings in her time, leaving her with only one day before running away in her car. Once they're far enough from town, they stop the vehicle to watch the news, and they discover they're now wanted people. Will once again tells Sylvia to go back, but she refuses because doing this is much more satisfying. Meanwhile, Weiss is lying to his investors, telling them everything is under control. Leon arrives to inform him this isn't a kidnapping anymore. Now, Sylvia is being chased after like a criminal as well. Weiss tries to bribe Leon to change his mind, but Leon rejects him and reminds that if Sylvia gets in contact with him, he needs to tell the keepers, otherwise he'll be arrested for being an accomplice. Later, Sylvia asks Will if he truly would give away time if he had it. When Will says he would, she devises a strategy. The pair begins to steal a Weiss money truck and they crash it into a time bank, where they steal as many time capsules as they can. The remaining capsules are left for the people in the ghetto to take. By the time the timekeepers show up, there's nothing left. In the evening, Will leaves Greta a time capsule among her laundry as an apology. Will also visits Maya, who is sleeping on the streets. The rest of the time they stole is brought to the timeline for the clerk to give whoever needs it. At the timekeeper's office, Leon notices there's time that shouldn't be there, and he assumes Will's hurting people he's trying to help. The following morning, Fortis tries to rob a man, but the guy can finally defend himself because he bought a gun. Fortis pretends to let him go, but as soon as the guy turns around, he shoots him anyway. When Fortis sees the guy's timer, he's shocked to see he's wasted a lot of time. Will and Sylvia proceeds robbing time banks, and their adventures appear on the news. Weiss wonders if his daughter tries to destroy him, but his wife tells that Weiss almost destroyed her first by suffocating. A week later, Leon and his men find Will's apartment and get ready to arrest them. But Will hears the radio noise from the window and immediately runs away with Sylvia, bursting into a different apartment to jump through a window at the back of the building. Leon follows them and starts to chase them through town. And when Will and Sylvia take the chase to the roofs, Leon opens fire. Will shoots back but fails, so he and Sylvia get off the roofs and get in the bus. The driver considers the idea of handing them to the authorities, but Will bribes him and they get to leave Leon behind. Later, they check in at a hotel, paying extra to get all the rooms and for the receptionist not to tell anyone. When a new client comes in, he's told it is fully booked, but he manages to see Will and Sylvia going upstairs. Later, Fortis and his men start threatening people for information about Will and Sylvia. At first, people stay silent because they want to protect the pair, but then Fortis kills a man to show how serious he is. This makes the guy from the hotel confess what he saw. At the hotel, the pair learns that the reward for them is 10 years, which they consider pretty insulting. Suddenly, Fortis bursts into the room with his men and hold the couple at gunpoint. Fortis explains the timekeepers leave him alone because he steals from his own people, so now, he must restore order. He tells he doesn't like killing people in cold blood and challenges Will to a time fight. Will uses the trick his father taught him, and when Henry starts looking at his timer, Will begins taking all his time. The guards come closer to watch in shock, and Will takes the chance to shoot them all before he makes Fortis time out. By the time the timekeepers arrive at the hotel, the pair is already gone. Later, Will notices prices and loan rates are being raised faster to make up for the new time on the streets. Their little robberies don't make a difference. They need a whole million years to even make a crack. Fortunately, Sylvia knows where to find that amount of time. The next day, Weiss is worried about the situation and goes to work surrounded by more bodyguards. The guards suddenly turn around when they notice a threat, but it's just Sylvia telling she wants to surrender. Weiss believes her and is ready to take her back. This distraction gives Will an opportunity to sneak behind him and capture him as a hostage. Then they take Weiss to his office to make him open the safe, where he keeps a capsule with 1 million years. Weiss tells that giving a year to 1 million people only prolongs their agony, and that flooding the wrong zone with 1 million years could damage the system. So Will expresses that's exactly what he wants. Will and Sylvia flees after locking Weiss in his own office. When the timekeepers learn about the robbery, they immediately go after them. They block the bridge to stop them. Leon is pursuing them as well, and when he finds them, he concentrates so much on them that he forgets to get his daily pay. The keepers open fire, but will just neglect the bullets and drives through the time zone barrier, allowing him to reach the ghetto. Leon wastes no time and crashes his car against theirs. Will immediately gets out of the car and gives the Million Years capsule to Maya before he and Sylvia pretend to surrender. Leon thinks he's won, but at that moment, the timeline announces there's time for everyone, and an eager crowd fills the street, getting in Leon's way and allowing Sylvia and Will to run away. Leon pushes people aside to get back in his car and go after them, but when they cross another barrier, Leon has to follow them on foot. At last, he catches up to them, then he tries to arrest them, but Will points out there's no point because he and Sylvia only have a few minutes left, so they'll die soon anyway. This makes Leon check his own timer and notice he doesn't have much time either because he didn't collect his daily pay. At that moment, his clock times out and Leon dies right there. Now, Will and Sylvia have a little time left, and they kiss to say goodbye. However, Will remembers the keepers have time in their cars, so he runs to Leon's car to take some for himself. Sylvia isn't as fast as him and worries she won't make it, but Will runs back to her and they meet halfway, and he shares time before death catches. In the company, Weiss has given up and tells his employees not to do anything because it's over. Newscasts all over the nation indicate how people have taken to the streets. The factories lie idle, and people are crossing the zones to reach to New Greenwich. Authorities tell everything is under control, but everyone knows the system will soon collapse. At the timekeeper's office, the employees decide to go home because there's nothing they can do. Will and Sylvia are never caught, and they even start going after bigger banks. For more videos like this, subscribe and click the notification bell, and don't forget to hit the like button. Also, you can check our other videos. Enjoy and take care.